Hey, this is Buck Dharma of Blue Oyster Cult, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by uppercutchops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA prime Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and of course the king of all those gigantic tomahawk cut and cowboy cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had, probably be the best you ever have as well. Check them out at uppercutchops.com. That's uppercutchops.com. Or give them a call, find out what's for dinner. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for uppercutchops.com. All right, welcome in everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast. All of our cable operators in select markets: Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, and Wow Cable TV, as well as Hotel TV and all Nielsen rated markets, plus a big hello to our friends on Chicago Food Favorites. Thanks for joining us over there on Chicago Food Favorites. Fun page on Facebook. Post your favorite restaurants, your favorite recipes, I don't know, your ideas on food, what you like, what you don't like, doesn't really matter. Have some fun with it. It's free, and it's on Facebook. That's Chicago Food Favorites. All right. And, of course, it's tournament time. That's right. The NCAA tournament is starting this week. So we're going to get a little head start on this, maybe talk a little bit about the brackets, a little bit of analysis here and there, and maybe who was snubbed and who wasn't. And, you know, like anything else, everybody and their brother and their mother is reporting on it, but the 2025 NCAA brackets are available and are complete if you go ahead and get yours out there. Guess what, folks? You could join one from the Sports Circus. I'm going to be posting one at the Sports Circus page on Facebook, also on the regular Sports Circus page at thesportscircus.com. So you could join the Facebook or the regular NCAA tournament at the Sports Circus. So I have a little bit of fun with it. Here's your number one seeds. Here's how it shook out for the men anyway. Auburn in the South region. Not really sure how that happened, but then again, doesn't really matter much to me. Somehow they got the overall number one, which again, doesn't really matter much, but they apparently are the number one, despite not being ranked number one in the grand scheme of things. And you know, when we think of those NCAA rankings, we ask ourselves, well, wait, are the rankings, or do the rankings, the final rankings, have anything to do with the brackets and whatnot? I don't know. There's a bunch of different ways to look at it. You ask yourself, you say, well, are the rankings really important? Well, to a degree they are, because it's a reflection of what has happened all year, and this is where the teams technically have ended up. And so as we look at that, I mean, look, we have to look at the standings, we have to look at the rankings, and I guess part of my question lies with, well, if Duke was the number one ranked team in America, why are they not the number one overall seed? Because they also won the ACC tournament. So ask yourself that question. And then you ask yourself, if Auburn lost to Tennessee in the SEC conference tournament, how did they end up with the number one overall seed? Now that makes no sense whatsoever. Yet they ended up probably ranked fourth, and I would argue that Florida would be ranked number 3, Alabama would be ranked number 4, and probably Auburn number 5, unless St. John's jumped up with theirs. But St. John's didn't really have the same level of competition, I suppose, as maybe the SEC or the ACC or even the Big 12 in that case. So I'm not really sure how that one matters, but the final rankings actually do matter, in my opinion. Anyway, back to these. Auburn in the South region, Duke number 1 in the East region, Houston in the Midwest region, which they're deserving, and Florida in the West region. And I probably would have put Florida in the Midwest and Houston over in the West. But then again, it doesn't really matter much to me because the rankings do matter to a degree. And these seeds, whether it's the region, South, East, Midwest, or West, they do matter because of the way that those regions shake out. Now, the SEC won the day, of course, with a record of 14 of 16 teams making the NCAA tournament. That's a really big number for them. Big Ten had 8 teams, and the Big 12 had 7 teams. Now, we're not going to talk much about the women's side. Let's just stick with the men. And on the men's side, you ask yourself, well, what do the brackets look like? I don't know. We'll get back to that in a minute. Who are the snubs and who got in? The big question for me, like a lot of other people, they ask themselves about these brackets. And you say, well, who are the first 4 in and who are the last 4 in and all this other crap? Well, the part that really drives me crazy is how in the world can somebody please tell me how in the world North Carolina ends up getting in the last 4 versus some of the other squads? And I don't know. I really don't know. It's just a real head scratcher to me because when you look at, geez, I don't know. When you look at this, you scratch your head and say, well, how the hell did North Carolina? Oh, I know. It's because it's Carolina. That's why. That's right. And it's only because it's Carolina. That's how I see it. But then again, that's my opinion, and what the hell do I know, right? But you ask yourself, how do these things happen in this particular way? Well, there's an alleged committee that is supposed to be impartial. And I'm not so sure that they're very impartial in the grand scheme of things. But when I look at it, I say, well, wait a minute. That's right. That's for you, Carolina. So when I look at the brackets and who got in, Indiana probably could have been one of the last 4 in. Xavier, I don't necessarily believe that they were better than West Virginia. West Virginia got snubbed as well. But the committee has all these alleged extra metrics in which they go over these brackets. Say, well, we want Xavier over here and we want North Carolina over here. None of this stuff makes a whole hell of a lot of sense in the grand scheme of things. As we look at all these different regions, somehow North Carolina is going to play their way in on the first 4. And, geez, I don't know. Texas and Xavier are going to be ranked a number 11, and they're going to open up against Illinois. And we're going to get to these brackets in a minute here. But as you look at these, you say, well, why is it that either San Diego State or Carolina, mind you, Carolina, who was already essentially on the outside, how are they going to be seeded number 11 if they beat San Diego State? That's crazy. Now, they're going to be in the bracket, of course, opposite Duke for the possibility of Duke Carolina. And that's why we have the opposites for the South and East with Auburn and Alabama possibly facing off in the championship game. That's how they set these things up. They want these big rivals out there. So you may have some semblance of, I don't know, some kind of rivalry that would match itself up to where this is something historically, oh, well, everybody's wanted to see that. And I'm not so sure about that. However, what we will do in today's program is we're going to fill out a bracket and we're going to talk with you, the audience. And by the way, in case you're wondering, as I was going over these brackets, better yet, when I was talking about them last week, I said, you may want to watch out for certain schools. And one of those schools was Bryant. And you say, well, Bryant, who the hell's Bryant? And I told you folks, I said, Bryant is going to win the American East. They're going to win their tournament, which they did. The Bryant Bulldogs are coming out of the American East, and they are going to square off against Sparty and Tom Izzo in round number 1. Do they have a chance? Well, that's kind of like the Jim Carrey, so you're telling me there's a chance, right, in that Dumb and Dumber movie. However, when you ask yourself, are they worthy? Why wouldn't they be worthy? A lot of people say, well, why is Bryant even in there in the first place? Well, Bryant is in there because they won their conference. Plain and simple. And I also had said, watch out for Memphis to come out of the AAC. I had Vacom in the A10, and then moving down to some of these other ones, I said, watch out for Lipscomb. Lipscomb, the Bisons, are going to be in there, and Lipscomb, sure enough, they are in there. And look, it's no cakewalk to get by some of these teams. And my biggest one, the biggest fear that I had was High Point. And I said, High Point is a good squad. And actually, my Purdue Boilermakers have to face them in the Midwest round number 1. They're going to have their hands full. There's no question with that. But some of these schools, you ask, well, Lipscomb, they get a 14, and they're playing Iowa State, and Iowa State is down a guy. Lipscomb could slip by Iowa State and mess up the whole lower bracket of the South region and maybe pin them against Marquette in the second round, the round of 32, or possibly even Michigan State in the Sweet 16. That's right, Lipscomb. And so as we move on, it was the Northern Colorado Bears. So we looked around, we said, well, are there Northern Colorado, are they going to sneak in there? As we look up and down the bracket, well, tell you what, folks, it looks to me like Northern Colorado did not make the field of 68 in the grand scheme of things. But yet, they won, or better yet, they were tied with Montana. The Montana Grizz are coming out of the Big Sky. And so technically, if it would have been Northern Colorado, then Montana, as we look at the brackets here, it looks like Montana is playing over as the number 14, opening up against Wisconsin. Now, the bigger question, the committee says Montana is a better matchup for Wisconsin, apparently, than Northern Colorado. That's another big question mark. So High Point, as I said, out of the Big South, that was an easy one. And then we go through some of the other ones real quick. UC San Diego, the Tritons, boy, those guys are legit. We're going to get to them and Liberty. We talked about Liberty, Robert Morris, Yale, and a few others, the Akron Zips. Watch out, folks. Fasten your seatbelts. It's tournament time. Back here on the Sports Circus in just a few moments. Don't go anywhere.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America, with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at
714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100.
Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Could you use a little extra money right now? If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UppercutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UppercutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UppercutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door. store without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at uppercutchops.com or call
714-948-0100, 714-948-0100, again, 714-948-0100.
or make your selection directly at uppercutchops.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's csncoyotes.com for the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. And a big welcome in to everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates and independents from coast to coast, including our friends over in Honolulu on CBS Sports 1500 KHKA. That's home of the New York Yankees, the 49ers, and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Welcome in everybody else up and down the West Coast and throughout the heartland on all of our affiliates and independents, all the way down to Auburn, Alabama, WAUD, home of the Atlanta Braves, 1230 on the AM dial. Big hello to our friends over in Atlanta, WDJY 99.1 FM. Thanks for waking up with us. Plus everybody else on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, let's see if I can say that again. I have this order that I normally do this, so sorry, folks. It is Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, and Wild Cable TV. There it is. All right, that's the whole ensemble of those. I'm probably missing some of those as well. And welcome into everybody on Hotel TV in over 500,000 rooms from coast to coast, as well as everybody at Chicago Food Favorites. Thanks for joining us over there through the Sports Circus as well. All right, so looking at these brackets, let's kind of dive into these things. And of course, there's odds and all this other nonsense. I mean, do we want to go over the odds first? I guess that's the next question. Do we really want to do that? Well, I don't know. Maybe we do. Maybe we don't. Tell you what, let's take a look at the odds just because we can. How about that? So let's go to the NCAA Futures Market. And that is courtesy of pick your favorite casinos, whether it's the Caesars Group, the MGM Group, or actually just the Caesars or MGM. But these particular properties, these sports books, we're going to focus only on the MGM Grand, Caesars Palace, and Bally's. We're not going to get into all those online ones because, frankly, I don't give a damn. So the overall number one, who should have been number one, but yet the overall number one allegedly is Auburn. And Auburn is a plus 400. They're a 4-1 favorite over at the MGM. They are a 4.5 to 1 or 9-2 over at Caesars Palace and 5-1 at Bally's. However, the Duke Blue Devils, which of course always gets a round of applause, Duke at Bally's is 3.5 to 1 or 7-2. At Caesars, they're 340, so they're 3.4 to 1. And at the MGM, they're only 3 to 1. So really, they are the odds-on favorite to win everything. And right behind them are the Florida Gators. At the MGM, it is 3.5 to 1 or 7-2 for Florida to win it all. At Caesars Palace, 375 or 3.75 to 1. And at Bally's, they're at 4 to 1. But the best numbers overall are clearly the Blue Devils from Duke University. Houston, a nice price at 6 to 1 at MGM, 6.5 to 1 at Caesars, and 7 to 1 at Bally's. Tennessee is all the way up. There's the big jump right there. So once you get past Houston, the numbers jump into doubles. Tennessee is a lofty 18 to 1 at the MGM, 16 to 1 at Caesars and Bally's. How about Alabama? Alabama, who apparently is a pretty good squad, which everybody says they are. but they're at 15-1 at MGM, 16-1 at Caesars, 16-1 at Bally's. You're getting a big, big price with Alabama, and then it jumps up into the 20s and so forth, and we'll just cover a couple of these. Michigan State and St. John's are both 22-1 at the MGM. Michigan State is 20-1 at Caesars, and St. John's is 18-1 at Caesars. And actually, Caesars, or better yet, Bally's has Michigan State at 25-1, and St. John's is off the board at Bally's. You know why?
Show me the money!
Yeah, show me the money. That's right. And so then we're all the way into the big, big numbers. So those are pretty much the odds of what you need to know. And we're going to give them, those schools that are the better values, a nice round of applause. That's the extended round of applause, if you will. All right, so now that we know what the odds are, these are the future odds, folks. These are not the game-by-game odds. We're not going to go over those. Let's head over to the bracket. We're going to go over to, I'm going to fill out a bracket right now with everybody on air, and I'm going to show this so everybody on Facebook that's watching this, I pull the camera up so you can see this, and we've got Alabama, or better yet, we have Auburn as your first one against Broken Coke Machine and Broken Coke Machine. That's the play-in game. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to select Auburn in that one. That's a real easy pick. Tough game. 8-9 matchup in the South region has Louisville and Creighton. I mean, this one's a coin flip, folks. I want to give it to Louisville, but something tells me Creighton is just a better squad. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click Creighton in that one. So now that brings a round of 32 match between Auburn and Creighton. We're going to get back to that. Michigan and UC San Diego, the Tritons. We're looking for the 12-5 upset right there. We're going to go with UC San Diego over Michigan, Big Ten champion Michigan. How do you like them apples? You got to shake it up a little bit. You can't play all the favorites here. Texas A&M and a very good Yale team. Boy, I'll tell you, Yale can play defense with the best of them. The question is, can they score with A&M? And I'm going to say, yes, they can. I'm going to take the Yale Bulldogs over the Texas A&M Aggies from the SEC, and you're going to see one of the bigger ones fall right there. A number 4 will fall, and I've got a 13 beating them. Now going to the lower bracket, the lower half of that bracket, we've got Mississippi, Ole Miss against the winner of UC, or better yet, against San Diego State and Carolina. And so either way, whichever of these teams match up against Ole Miss is going to beat them anyway. It doesn't really matter. And that game really has no value. Now here's an interesting one, a 3-4 team with Iowa State and Lipscomb, because when you look at Iowa State, you say, wait a minute, they're missing a guy. But yet they have a number 3 slot on the brackets. Lipscomb is coming out of nowhere. And folks, in case you missed it, I'm going to go back to these standings here. And I've got Lipscomb right, where the heck are they? They are right, oh shoot, bear with me, folks. I'm doing this live. Here they are. In the Atlantic Sun Conference, it's Lipscomb at 14-4, and they end up with a win over North Alabama to make it in. And they're 25-9 overall. Lipscomb's a pretty solid squad. But now the issue is Iowa State minus a superstar better than Lipscomb? And I'm going to say they are. I don't think you're going to see an upset here, which sets up a Mississippi-Iowa State matchup in the round of 32. We'll get back to that. Marquette and New Mexico. Shaka Smart Club is a very good club at tournament time, but New Mexico plays that wild, high-scoring type of a game. I'm going to give it to the Marquette defense in this one. Just like in the bottom bracket here, in the bottom of the bracket, it's going to be Tom Izzo advancing over Bryant. That's how we see this one. Now, we're going to head over to the East region. And we're going to look at the East region real quick because this one should be a hell of a lot easier to fill out. And these games, of course, March 20 through March 21, of course, everybody knows. And these games are going to be local for Duke. Of course, Duke with a real easy win, likely over American. And then the next bracket down, the next, I guess, Duke's matchup will probably be it's going to be either Miss State or Baylor. We're going to go with Baylor, the Bears, to upset the Bulldogs there in a mild upset. Now, below them, in the next bottom half of that bracket, is Oregon and Liberty. Watch out for those Liberty Flames. Those boys can play, And these guys are no joke. In fact, let's go back to these standings here, and let's take a look at Liberty in case you didn't see them as you go up and down. These guys are 28-6, 13-5 overall in Conference USA. This is a really, really high-scoring, high-octane squad, and so don't count Liberty out. I got Liberty beating Oregon, and in the bottom of that game, the bottom of that bracket, it's going to be the Akron Zips, who actually bring the longest winning streak in the country right now against Arizona. Arizona's been playing better of sorts, but you could see another upset here, another 12-13. I got a 12-13 opposite here with UC San Diego and Yale. I'm going to do the same damn thing, and I'm going to go with Akron here, the Zips, to shock the world and beat Arizona. And then moving down, it's Brigham Young, a very, very strong defensive squad against the Virginia Commonwealth Rams. Boy, those guys can really light it up. But we're going to go with the defense of BYU over Vacom. And to play the winner of that game is going to be either Wisconsin or Montana. Wisconsin's just too much, folks. Too much. Way too much. Now, going down to the bottom half of that bracket, it's St. Mary's and Vanderbilt. And this one screams St. Mary's, although Vanderbilt's a good squad right there out of Nashville. We're going to go with St. Mary's because they did win the West Coast Conference this year. They beat Gonzaga, which is a pretty tough thing to do. And at the bottom of the bracket, it's Alabama and Robert Morris. That one screams Alabama. So, folks, as we move on through these brackets, we're going to go to the bottom half of these brackets. And we'll preview this real quick before we go to break. Number one in the West bracket is Florida and Norfolk State. They had a match up with. And then UConn and Oklahoma. Memphis, Colorado State. Watch out for those Rams. Boy, those guys are really good at Colorado State. Maryland and Grand Canyon. Drake and Missouri. That one screams Drake. We're going to get to these in the next segment. Texas Tech, NC Wilmington, Kansas, Arkansas, and St. John's, and Nebraska, Omaha. In the next segment, we're going to cover these, folks. This is going to be a lot of fun. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come here on the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime, nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Hello Americans, it's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS or state, don't worry. I've got important news that may help you negotiate a lower tax bill. In today's economy, the IRS has released a variety of new rules and is offering more flexible terms to help Americans looking to settle their IRS debt. If you apply today, we may be able to lift your wage garnishments and release a freeze on your bank assets or business. Our team of tax professionals can resolve your case and stop collection actions against you. Even if you've been audited or haven't filed a return in years, they can help. Call right now and find out if you qualify to settle your IRS debt for far less than what you owe. Pick up your phone right now and call us for a free $500 IRS tax review. Don't wait. Here's the number.
Call right now. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. For the last time. That's 800-950-2049.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
That's ridiculous.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP-TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by the music of Jason Owens. Folks, if you don't know who Jason Owens, you better check him out. Jason Owens Music, country music star. This kid's rising. He's good. He's got his own content. He's played Vegas 150 times. He must be doing something right. Check him out at jasonowensmusic.com. That's jasonowensmusic.com for tour dates, whether it's here in Vegas or around the country. Folks, you're going to like him. He's a good guy, and he's a good soul, too. Nice round of applause for Jason. Yes! All right. Welcome back to everybody on radio and TV. You know who you are. Now, continuing on with the West Bracket, we're going to bring this camera up here so everybody that's streaming on Chicago Food Favorites, if I'm not mistaken, you can check that out. You can check out this live stream there on Chicago Food Favorites, or get notified when the Sports Circus go live, or one of those other ones. I have no idea where this one's going right now, so just kind of play along, folks, if you know what I mean. Okay, the West Bracket. We're filling the bracket out with you on air right now, just because we can. So this particular bracket that I'm filling out, now we're down in the West Bracket. So far, we've only done, let's see, which ones have we done? We have done the South and the East. Now we got the West and Midwest. And we're going to start out with the Florida and Norfolk game. We're going to zoom in for everybody watching right now. Of course, that one screams Florida. Florida's arguably one of the best teams in the country. We're going to put them right there with a nice, easy win. The next matchup, the bottom part of that bracket is kind of a conundrum between UConn, two-time defending champion, and Oklahoma. And Oklahoma doesn't sweat anybody. You never know what you're going to get with those guys. And UConn, we already know that they lead the world in blocked shots. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go with UConn to at least advance to the round of 32. Moving on, it's the Memphis Tigers and the Rams of Colorado State. And folks, this is one of those matchups you'd like to see in the Elite Eight, but unfortunately it has to happen right now. And with Memphis playing really good ball and Colorado State really coming on, we're going to go with Colorado State in this one. Another 12-5 upset. And these are very common seemingly in these tournaments. The Turtle and the Hare. It's Maryland and Grand Canyon. How about, they're basically, Grand Canyon they're the antelopes, we'll call them the jackalopes. But in any case, Grand Canyon plays a wild run and gun type of a game. Maryland had a couple of nice wins towards the end. That's why they got themselves a number 4 seed. But you know, are we going to see yet another 13-12 matchup? What do you think, folks? I don't think so. It's going to be Maryland moving on. Now, here's an interesting one between the Missouri Tigers and Drake. Those Drake Bulldogs. Now, in case you don't know and you haven't seen what Drake has done all year, well, let me refresh you, ladies and gentlemen, because in the Missouri Valley Conference, it's Drake. Yeah, that's right. I'm going to zoom out for everybody watching on the live feed right now on Facebook. So it's Drake at 30-3 out of the Missouri Valley Conference, which is no slouch. Remember, Northern Iowa is in this same group. But guess what? 30-3, 17-3 overall. Those guys are legit. Now, if for some reason you don't think Drake belongs in there, you better guess again. You better check yourself, because Drake is going to get themselves a win over Missouri. There's an 11 over 6 for you, and that one's for free. Texas A&M and NC Wilmington. If NC Wilmington wins this one, I will never pick another one of these brackets ever again, if you know what I mean. I can't do it. This one's Texas Tech all over the place. They're going to match up with Drake in the next round. So it's Kansas now at the bottom of the bracket. Here's an interesting thing. We've got Kansas, and we've got, well, who's coaching Arkansas? Can you imagine first of all, a win by the Johnnies with St. John's? That's going to win with Rick Pitino. He's a number 2. We're going to give that one an easy one. But can you see him against his old coaching nemesis from where? That's right. If you know, you know. We're going to set this matchup with Arkansas beating Kansas. And then we're going to see this great matchup, this coaching matchup, a historic coaching matchup here with St. John's and Arkansas. Moving over to the see if I can spell that one out. Midwest bracket. It's Houston. A nice, easy victory over Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. Sorry, guys, your first trip and your last one for a while. Now, here's where it gets interesting because the Zags are a very good squad. We know that perennially they are. But Georgia has knocked off the big boys left, right, and center all year. So the question is it going to be Gonzaga, who is consistently in the Elite Eight or whatnot, or a very good Georgia team? This is a coin flip, folks, and I have to say that I'm basically going to flip a coin, and I'm going to go with Georgia with the slight upset over Gonzaga. I think it'll be Gonzaga's first round exit in a very long time. Real easy bracket below them is going to be Clemson with an easy win over McNeese. Well, at least that one is, because here's where the upsets start right here on this side. And I've got High Point against my Purdue Boilermakers. High Point, man, they are legit. And I'm going to give it to them. And they're going to end up playing Clemson in basically an interstate, or better yet, an intrastate rivalry. That's a very nice matchup between High Point, North Carolina, and Clemson in South Carolina. Nice border war, so to say. Now, moving down, it's Illinois, who's really played well. They're going to match up against either Xavier or Texas. And Xavier is a very, very good road team. They've been playing pretty well, but we've got Illinois beating either one of those teams. Illinois is playing very, very good basketball in the second, I'll say the last third of the season. We'll leave it like that. The men of Troy and Kentucky, and you say, wow, that's an easy one for Kentucky. Not so fast! No. Not so fast. We're going to advance the men of Troy, and yet another 14-3 upset over here. Now, the bottom of the bracket, these make for very good games, at least this particular one, the bottom bracket that is in the Midwest. This one is Utah State and a very good UCLA team. We're going to give it to the Aggies of Utah State to play Tennessee, and that rounds out our first round. So now we're going to start for the round of 32 right here in the Midwest bracket. We're going to advance Tennessee over Utah State. That should be a hard-fought game, but Tennessee is just a better squad. Same thing with the Illinois-Troy game. This one screams Illinois, so we're going there, which sets up a Sweet 16 matchup between Illinois and Tennessee. Top half of the bracket, we've got High Point and Clemson. Well, High Point, this is where your season ends because Clemson is just too damn good. And we've got Houston advancing over Georgia, which sets up a Houston-Clemson big matchup right there. Over on the other side, in the West bracket, we've got Florida and UConn. This one is Florida. Sorry, UConn, you don't have enough this year. It's not going to happen. Now, below them, it's Colorado State and Utah, and Colorado State is good enough to advance, and we've got Colorado State advancing to play Florida in the Sweet 16. Bottom half of the bracket, the Drake Bulldogs and Texas Tech. Drake is good enough to win this one. Texas Tech might be just a little bit too much. We're going to go ahead and stick with Texas Tech here, and the Johnnies to advance over Arkansas for rounding out the West first weekend going into the Sweet 16. Over the top brackets here, the South and the East, real quick, it's Auburn against Creighton, a very, very good Creighton team. Creighton can upset this team. The question is, which Creighton team is going to show up? I don't know. I really don't know here, but we're going to advance Auburn because Creighton is pretty inconsistent. They had a real bad showing against DePaul, who they should have destroyed in the Big East Conference, but they really didn't. It took them overtime to beat DePaul, and DePaul's terrible. UC San Diego is going to advance over Yale here to set up a Sweet 16 matchup between the Tritons and War Eagle. Over in the bottom half of that bracket, we've got Mississippi over a shorthanded Iowa State team advancing only to play the winner of Marquette and Michigan State. And we're going to advance Shaka Smart here over Michigan State. Sorry, Tom Izzo, it is what it is. Right? And now that sets up Mississippi, Ole Miss, and Marquette in the bottom of that bracket. Over in the East real quick, it's going to be Duke over Baylor in a fun and exciting game. We'll see Cooper Flagg will be back for that one. And Liberty and Akron. Boy, this is a hell of a matchup. And we're going to advance the Liberty Flames here to match up against Duke in the 16. And in the bottom half of that bracket, we're going to match up BYU over Wisconsin against, ooh, boy, this is a tough one. Do we go with Alabama, who's been good all year, maybe slipping a little, or a hot St. Mary's team? I want to go with St. Mary's, and I think this is the end of Alabama's run. We're going to advance. Yes, we're going to advance St. Mary's over Alabama. This could be the bracket buster for me, but then again, I didn't have Alabama getting past Duke anyway in this bracket, over in the East bracket. When we come back, folks, we're going to look at the Sweet 16, the Elite 8, and the Final Four right here on the Sports Circus. And by the way, folks, you can fill out your own brackets and submit them to the Sports Circus for laughs and giggles and consideration for maybe a free hat if you end up with the highest point total than everybody else. I haven't decided what we're going to do here on the circus, but we have lots of great merch at thesportscircus.com. And folks, there is a nice handy-dandy website that's called thesportscircus.com. And here's what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick look, and we're going to show you that tab right across the top of the page while you're right here. And there it is. It says Store. We'll click on Store. This is for everybody here. And there's all the hats and coats and T-shirts. That's the Store tab at thesportscircus.com. A shameless plug for the circus. Make sure you mention the circus or me, and you'll get 10% off. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA. The only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Folks, this segment brought to you in part by our friends over at Al's Number One Italian Beef, 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. That's Al's Number One Italian Beef, 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. Folks, if you can't get over there to try some of that great food, check them out at alsbeef.com. That's alsbeef.com, and tell them the circus sent you. Yes! Of course, you can find Al's Beef on our partners page here on thesportscircus.com. Lots of other great partners, past and present, and they include all the automotive companies. There's Uppercut Chops right there, Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame, College of Southern Nevada Athletics, and the Retired Players Congress. Everybody watching on the live stream, you can actually see that. And Mr. Jerry Owens had just said hello. Of course, we'll give him a big fat hello. Jerry's a great guy. Jerry just likes to say, if you know what I mean. And also some of our other partners, of course, that would be Mike Hollis's Proform Kicking Academy, Ditka Jaws Cigars with the Stars, and even Pat Williams' book, For Character Carved in Stone, Lasorda University from Zach Manassian, Dan Pastorini Charity. Dan's a great guy. Nice round of applause for Dante. And also Dan Pastorini Quality Foods. Of course, Purple Fury, our friend. This guy, Rob Ryder, is a really interesting guy. Check out the book Purple Fury, folks. Boy, that's really good stuff. As a matter of fact, you could probably find a copy of that book under, pick your favorites. How about purplefury.net? Even James Donaldson's book, Celebrating Your Gift of Life. Randy Grimes, Off Center. Randy's a great guy. And, of course, the comedy of Tom Dreesen. Tom's one of our favorites, and he's been around for a long time. He was an opener for Frank Sinatra for 13 years. I think he did 60-odd shows, filling in for Johnny Carson for The Tonight Show. Even the comedy of Dennis Blair. Dennis, another good guy. Check out Dennis, of course, at DennisBlair.com. And I have to tell you, folks, lots and lots of great partners here for the circus. All right, now that we've got all that out of the way, we're going to jump ourselves right back into the Sweet 16. March 27, 28, we're going to start off in the South region. We're going to see the first matchup of Auburn and UC San Diego. Can the Tritons of UC San Diego advance past Auburn? Now, Auburn is a very, very good defensive squad. And that's what you've got to ask yourself. Everybody listening in, of course, on WAUD over in Auburn, Alabama, War Eagle, you're going to have your hands full with UC San Diego. You don't know much about them. Very few people do. But these guys are legit. But somehow I find Auburn advancing in a very, very close game. We're going to check Auburn in our bracket that's being done right here live on the Sports Circus. We're going to advance Auburn to the Elite Eight. And they're going to end up playing the winner of the Mississippi Marquette game. And I've got Shaka Smart upsetting Ole Miss in a mild upset, a 7-6. We're going to advance Marquette to the Elite Eight to face off against Auburn. Now, over in the East bracket opposite the South, it's Duke and Liberty, and it's Duke in a very, very high-scoring, entertaining game against Liberty. Duke will advance. They'll probably win by 4 or 5 points. And to play the winner of the BYU St. Mary's game, which is high-powered offense against high-powered defense. And we're going to give this one to Brigham Young. And we're going to advance the Cougars. So it's the Cougars and the Blue Devils in the Elite Eight. Now moving down to the bottom half of the bracket, over in the West, we've got Florida, number 1 against a number 12 Colorado State. This is where Colorado State's run comes to an end. We're going to advance Florida there to the 8, to the winner of the Johnnies and the Red Raiders from Texas Tech. You know, we had a nice relationship with Texas Tech for a while here on the Sports Circus. Great people down there. But this is where their run ends, and it's the Johnnies and Rick Pitino advancing to the 8, matching up Florida and St. John in the Elite 8. And the opposite side of the bracket, it's Houston and Clemson, and boy, that is a nice matchup. That's a real nice matchup right there. Can Houston's defense shut down Clemson? Remember, Duke's only ACC loss was to Clemson. But Houston's defense just might be too much. We're gonna see Houston probably win that game by a bucket. We're going to give that one to Houston in a low-scoring affair to match up against Illinois or Tennessee, which really poses an interesting matchup. Tennessee winning the SEC tournament. Illinois played really well in the last several games, but somehow it's going to be Tennessee advancing to the 8 against Houston. So now that brings us to the 8, the round of 8. And we're going to start right back here in the Midwest with Houston against Tennessee for a right to go to the Final Four. We're going to advance the Volunteers of Tennessee to come out of the West region. Midwest region, that is, out of the Midwest region. Now, over in the West region, this is where Rick Pitino's ends. He ends right there against Florida. Florida is arguably, they're one of the top 2 teams in the nation. And we're going to give it to Florida in a very tight game. But we're going to give it to Florida, and Florida will advance in the West. Over in the South region, it's Auburn and Marquette. And these 2 teams play a very, very similar game, but we're going to give the nod to Auburn because they are a more well-rounded squad, and they still somehow are the number 1 team overall in this tournament. But Auburn is a very, very solid squad. They have better defense than Marquette, and it's going to be Auburn advancing. And over in the East bracket, it's high-powered offense, great rebounding from Duke against a good defensive team, but the scoring from Duke is going to be too much for Brigham Young, and Duke advances to the Final Four. Now, over in the left side of the bracket, we have in the Final Four, Auburn and Florida, a number 1 against a number 1. And this one, you could chop it up in any number of ways, and they're both very, very good squads. And it's hard to imagine either of these teams having to lose, but we're going to say that Florida is going to advance in the Final Four to the championship game against the winner of Duke, Tennessee, and Duke is just too much for Tennessee. And it's going to be the final game between Florida and Duke. And I think a lot of people could see this one. These are 2 number 1s, very, very good teams. These are probably 2 of the top 3 teams in the country anyway. The question is, can Duke continue on their run, and will Cooper Flagg stay healthy, or does Florida have enough in the tank to run the table? I don't necessarily believe so. I think Duke wins another tight game. As a matter of fact, I've got the final score of Duke with 74. Oops. Yeah, that's a 1, right? So everyone got a laugh on that one. I have hotkeys here. I've got 74 for Duke, and I've got 72 for Florida as the final score. Your national champion is Duke University. Your runner-up is Florida, and that will be played on April 7th down in San Antonio. And there it is for everybody watching. We did the bracket right here live on the Sports Circus. We're not going to change anything. Of course, we all have multiple brackets, but this is the official one for the circus, and it's going to be one hell of a tournament, I have to tell you. And some of the teams that got snubbed, I'm not happy about West Virginia getting snubbed, but at the same time, I can't worry about that. Here's your national champion right there, folks. It's going to say Duke University. And for everybody, if you're wondering, yes, I am a Duke grad. And if you're watching on this feed right here, these are my stickers that I got from the Duke Alumni Association and for the actual interviews that I do for the university. I've been doing it for 25 years as an academic recruiter for Duke, and I proudly wear it. And listen, these guys are not only good ball players, but these are very, very good students that, let's face it, even if they don't play professional basketball, well, guess what? They're going to go on and do great things in life because that's what Duke University actually produces. They produce winners in life, which run business, science, math, the arts, medical. Duke Medicine is the top of the food chain, folks. Believe it. America's top 3 universities are Princeton, Yale, and Duke. It is what it is. So whether you like it or not, it's okay. It's not okay. I don't really care. But when you look at all of these numbers with all of these matchups, you say, well, who could really do it? At the outset, you say Auburn is good enough to win it for sure. Alabama is good enough to win it. St. Mary's is certainly good enough to win it. Michigan State, they always fizzle in the second round. I don't know what it is. St. John's, it's just a magical run that likely will end. Florida, we've got them here. But if some of these matchups didn't happen, and you say maybe some teams switch with others, you'd say, can Drake make a run to the Elite Eight? Yes, they could, but they ran into a Texas Tech team here in the second round that probably will knock them out. Is Illinois good enough to get to 16? Yes, they do, but that's about it. Is Houston good enough to win it? Defensively, yes, they are, but offensively, I don't think they are. Now, over in these other brackets here, is Alabama good enough to win? They are, but they're missing some pieces, and I happen to believe that I would argue that Wisconsin is better than Alabama. I would have Wisconsin beating Alabama anyway. And then looking at some of these other matchups that if they didn't happen so early, I think Creighton has kind of a tough matchup against Auburn in the second round. Creighton can go a lot further, but we don't know how good Creighton really is. And with Marquette, we don't really know which Shaka Smart team is going to show up. And that's why I've got Auburn beating Marquette. And Brigham Young, they just don't score enough. And that's really the reality with them because those guys can play defense. I mean, Liberty scores enough. The problem is they're going to play against a pretty good defense with Duke. And so if you look at what Duke did to Carolina, they beat Carolina 3 times this year. And you can say, well, Carolina, it was an off season for them and all this other crap. Maybe they're rebuilding, whatever. When it's Duke and Carolina, believe me, they're playing each other for a reason because, let's face it, Carolina every year will get up to play Duke no matter how bad they are. And it's like Duke, if they're really terrible and how good Carolina may be, well, guess what? That's why they have Carolina matched up in the South region against Mississippi, but they could have potentially coming out of the South against the East being Duke. That's why they set these things up. That's why you have Auburn over on this side in the South and Alabama over here in the East. So these matchups were set in case the unthinkable happens. Same thing with Florida over here in the West region as the number 1 and all the way on the opposite side of number 2 against the Midwest region's number 2 being Tennessee. So they try to get these matchups across the board. How you look at them, you say, well, all right, if a perfect world happens, maybe you might see these great rivalries actually happen. So the committee really has their hands full. And, you got to give them a nice round of applause because those guys, they got a really rough job. Now, if you think they don't, believe me, they do. And they're going to make somebody upset one way or another. That's just what happens with these brackets. So, folks, fill your brackets out, have fun with them, and guess what? Make sure you come back right here to the Sports Circus in 23 hours, and we'll see you then right here on your favorite station. So until then, so long, everyone.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA. The only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.